All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are off to another episode talking about the picture of Dorian Gray for our Lenten series. Once again, I am Crazy Horse, your host. So now we are entering into the Sibyl Vane chapters. So Sibyl Vane comes onto the scene whenever Dorian runs up to Lord Henry and he's just like, "I've fallen in love," like any 17-year-old would, and then just like any adult responding to a 17-year-old, it's just like, okay, what's this one about? So Dorian goes in ad nauseum describing the events leading up to meeting Sibyl Vane. We don't even get to meet her yet. So he's just wandering about, and he is invited into a playhouse, a stage theater. And the way that he describes the proprietor of the playhouse is, shall we say, this term is getting thrown around a lot these days, but it is quite anti-Semitic. It is just going on ad nauseum of this old Jew and how poor this Jew was and how ugly this Jew was and how, eccentric this Jew was. And it's just like, oh my goodness, like did not really age well. That part just did not age very well at all. So he pays a guinea for a box, and that is actually a very large sum of money. And he's seated next to the stage, and he sees Sibyl Vane, and there's several Shakespearean plays. She plays Juliet, she plays Ophelia, she plays the Desdemona from Othello. Like she just does it all. And then the proprietor of the playhouse is just like, "Hey, would you like to go backstage and meet her?" And so yeah. And the way that Dorian describes Sibyl, it's also a bit cringe as well. It's like the main adjective he uses to describe Sibyl is small. She has small hands. She has a small face. She has a small voice. She has a small frame. Everything is small with Sibyl Vane. But he believes that she is some sort of artistic genius whenever it comes to her acting, that she fully embodies the character that she's playing. And that is what Dorian has sort of seen himself fall in love with. Now, those of you who know anything about love, as far as the saying goes, never meet your heroes. Leonardo DiCaprio is not Jack Dawson, and Jack Dawson is not Leonardo DiCaprio. That acting is an entirely different. It's an art form, but Dorian has fallen in love with Sibyl more as an icon of the characters that she plays. He's more falling for Desdemona. He's more falling for Juliet than, and that she's pretty. She's pretty as a picture, just lovely to look at. But he's enthralled with this sort of artistic genius and this experience of beauty. So this is a kind of idealization of a person, an abstracting of them. We use the term objectify to simply talk about just admiring someone's sexual characteristics of what makes them sexually attractive. But it really is just objectifying anything about a person, and really what has been objectified about Sibyl by Dorian is her acting talent. So this is a kind of idealization, not necessarily for pleasure, but for idealization. And there's been this thing that I've been working on for a while that's this sort of idea of with theology of the body, of talking about various nuptial heresies, we talk about domination versus submission, or simping, or things like that. I've been trying to categorize these different courting strategies and create a sort of catalog of how they fit into different heresies. And both with, less so with Dorian. Dorian's more kind of imposing his own artistic vision onto Sibyl. Sibyl, on the other hand, is full on simping for Dorian. Dorian, once again, is this very overwhelmingly attractive young man, just from love at first sight type of deal. She even gives him the nickname of Prince Charming, and that he's just this ideal of the perfect man to her. This, I won't say like Ubermensch, that's a completely different philosophical thing, but just this ideal of love. And what I want to call that is nuptial Jansenism, that love isn't love unless it's perfect. And she has this perfect idea. So, and Dorian does also fall into this perfectionism that, beauty must remain flawless, that whenever Sibyl is in a different context outside of Dorian, there's this chapter where she's having a conversation with her mother. Her mother's just like, oh, he's rich, so kudos, go for it, girl, get the rich guy, get that bag. And the brother's just like, you're being a ditz. But the brother's also a sailor, and she's also imagining, Sibyl's also, whenever she's talking to her brother, imagining the perfect love life for her brother, that he, rescues a damsel in distress and they fall in love and live happily ever after. Like, she really does just have her head in the clouds, la la land of where her acting career ends and where real life begins. And sort of the way that Dorian views her, that she's I guess somewhat of a method actor, that she's not really ever out of character. Dorian proposes marriage to her, and this is where we have the scene with the mother and the brother, and like I said, she is just being head over heels, just absolutely ditzy about her perspective of Dorian, that she won't even tell her mother and her brother what his real name is how much she has idealized him. She simply refers to him as Prince Charming. Like, are red flags going off yet? But once again, her mother can just see, oh, he's rich, so yeah, girl, get that bag. But then comes whenever Dorian invites Basil and Lord Henry to the playhouse to see her. Like, he's overjoyed, like, you must see her, like, the artistic genius. But that night she plays badly. She plays her role badly. And this is something devastating to Dorian, because he loves her for her artistic genius, and to see her play badly is a side of her that, like, he just never wanted to see before. And this is one of the things that she's now dropping the mask and showing her true colors to him, and he doesn't like what he sees. So Basil and Lord Henry are just like, this is a bore, we're leaving. So they leave at the intermission, and Dorian stays and he talks to Sibyl afterward. She is like, I played badly because I now know what real love is. I don't pretend love anymore. I know what love feels like, and I don't have to go pretending for it anymore. And Dorian's just like, how dare you play badly? You've ruined my love for you. I don't love you anymore. And then, once again, they're both like teenagers, and you can just imagine the kind of soap opera that this starts songs like, you've ruined my love for you. I can no longer see you the same way. I never want to see you again. And it's like after he's already proposed marriage to her, and Sibyl throws herself at his feet, and he says he doesn't feel any pity for her. He just feels disgust at how she's ruined everything with the acting poorly. He leaves and he goes home, and this is where we see that the picture starts to change. And there was one more thing I was wanting to mention about this. So as I mentioned in the last episode about the choice, and the example I gave was Coraline with the button eyes, this is an example of the test. Sibyl's test is what happens when you stop acting in the experience of real love, when art dies and reality appears. This is her test, that she drops the mask. And Dorian has a moral test of what can he love her when she stops being beautiful, and can there still be love in the absence of beauty. And once again, Oscar Wilde is this aesthetic. So Dorian leaves the playhouse, he goes home, and this is where he sees the picture has changed. And now the picture has a cruel smile. The way that I'm just imagining in my head as I'm listening to the book is almost like a Heath Ledger Joker, why so serious type of let's put a smile on that face, shall we? Type of a cruel smile is how it's described. And he discovers that now his conscience has been offloaded onto the picture. That he won't suffer for his sins, the picture will suffer for his sins. That aging decay and moral decay will be shown on the picture rather than in his own countenance. And at first he wants to reform. He's just like, I don't want to be, a bad man. I'll keep the picture, and I'll look at the picture as sort of my North Star. Am I doing good? Then the picture will look good. Am I doing badly? The picture will look bad. He goes to sleep, and then the next day he gets a letter from Lord Henry. He doesn't read it. He's just wanting to make up with Sibyl. So he writes this big, long apology letter, and he makes this remark about self-reproach and confession, that he even says that the sacrament of confession is less about actual reconciliation and more about inward reflection or self-analysis. And so he writes this big apology letter to Sibyl, asking to make up with her, that he still wants to keep the engagement, etc., etc. And then Lord Henry arrives. And Lord Henry's just like, have you read my letter? He's like, no, I wrote this apology letter to Sibyl instead. And Lord Henry informs Dorian that Sibyl Vane is now dead, that she ingested some sort of poisonous compound used in like stage makeup or something like that contained arsenic, and she is now dead. Chapter sort of concludes that he's deciding now, he wanted to be a good person, and the whole tragedy with Sibyl Vane, he didn't really feel anything about it. Once again, this is sort of this offloading the conscience onto the picture has become now sort of moral anesthetic. And he's now saying, I'm not going to be good. I'm going to be bad. I'm going to be bad. I'm going to be the most wicked, vile person, and I'm going to love every minute of it. So this is where chapter 9 or 10 sort of concludes. So that's what I've got for y'all for this week's episode for the book review. Once again, I'm Crazy Horse, and keep a good countenance during Lent, y'all.